Okay, I'll go ahead and call to order the meeting in the Oconee County Art and Historical Commission, December 9th, 2021. First order is approval of the minutes, and this will be from the October 14th meeting. They are attached in your packet. If there are any changes, give you a moment to review them. Hearing no changes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And I second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the discussion items. Our first item is the ordinance, the 2021-11, and tonight we have David Root.
David Root. Yes, excuse me, the county attorney, here to help out, and Mr. Shirley called me in because I know y'all had some questions, so glad to field those, but I have a bit of an idea of where you're at. I was just looking over your last minute, so I'm not sure from a parliamentary standpoint exactly what we can do, so we're gonna have to flesh that out, because it looks like you passed a motion last time to remove, I think the salient portion, which is item, excuse me so I can read, section 1-102 subsection D, which essentially brings the opportunity to this commission to develop the list. So I think y'all made the motion, passed unanimously to remove that. That's what it says. You, of course, can't remove it because council would have to do that. You can reconsider it. Someone can make a new motion, but where you stand right now, you kind of already decided what you want to do. So that's the first point. So at some point, you may want to make a motion to reconsider that, or just leave it be, and I can take it to council and work around it. But if you want to talk about that particular section, or I could tell you why it's kind of landed here in your laps about making that list, and maybe that'll help focus in the conversation some.
So can we just open this up for discussion?
Absolutely. So yeah, you don't need to make a motion at this point. I'll jump into why, because as I understand it, there are a couple of questions, and then just interrupt me, do whatever you need to do if I bring up a topic of interest.
Okay, and may I interrupt? Okay.
Anytime.
So now, I just want to make certain that the understanding with us all is that the motion that passed unanimous was to recommend that section 1-102 of Article 5, that the ordinance is amended to remove that section. So as you say, the parliamentary aspect of that, in my opinion, is where we are.
Correct.
How is that brought forward to council for them to vote on whether to remove that section or not? Is that the clear understanding with us all?
So that's where you stand from just a procedural posture, and unless someone made a new motion to change that, if you take no action tonight, that's what's going to happen. It's going to go to council with that recommendation. So probably on the June 18th or January 18th meeting, I'll bring that up, and we'll take it from there. If you decide after we talk tonight that you want to really not alter that motion because that's action that's been taken, but make a new motion that may supersede that or tweak it a little bit, then you can do that then. But yeah, if you could just walk out right now and leave, then that would be my directive based on the motion that carried approved minutes, that's what would happen. Does that make sense?
I was not here in October, and I apologize for that. I did not anticipate that coming up. Can somebody explain to me why we made that decision?
Well, unfortunately, you did miss the meeting. So we voted and we had the discussion, and I believe that all of these are on YouTube, if you will. So I'm not going to retrace the steps. So I think that as it stands right now, if I understand correctly, unless there's a new motion and a vote, then it will be presented to council that the Arts and Historical Commission passed unanimously to request that the D, letter D of section 1-102 of Article 5 of Ordinance 2021-11 be removed.
That's right, that's how I
Okay.
read your minutes, and that's,
Okay.
I believe, how you stand.
Okay.
And it doesn't keep you, because it's not, you haven't passed an ordinance, you haven't passed a resolution, so it doesn't keep you from reconsidering in a different way and bringing up a new motion, but yeah, that's where you stand right now.
And well, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, if you will. I have absolutely no intention myself of making a new motion. That's all I can say.
So if I could jump in on that particular section, the genesis of it was, I know there was, Walhalla passed an ordinance that was very, I'll just say succinct, and then cursory, and it could lead to some vagueness as to where it could apply, what it applies to. And I think the notion when it was first brought up to council was to model something along those lines. And where it has going for it, that succinctness and simplicity, the enforcement of it would be very difficult. And if I were on, I would look at things from, if I were on representing a property owner or somebody who wanted to move something that might be considered a historical monument in their yard or their neighbor's yard with permission, something that's lawful to do, that could be invoked. I would not have a problem defending that and having a judge overturn that ordinance and say it's outside the parameters of what could be constitutional, just mainly because of the ambiguity and vagueness of the ordinance. It's just not specific enough to be enforced. So it leaves, when I bring in the Constitution, it may seem like a big step, but it's a due process issue. Folks have to know what the law is going to be, how it's going to be enforced, what it's going to be enforced to, and those are all procedural and substantive due process issues. So that's why council went down this path that allows for some more definiteness as to what these articles are, what these items are. I get that it's difficult to tag all of these.
I'm
So-
sorry to interrupt you, but it sounds to me like it would be a debate between two attorneys, because I imagine that the town of Walhalla has their own attorney. So if I'm hearing correctly, then you would dispute the legality or the holding up in court of the city of Walhalla's ordinance, and that, sir, as a professional, is your opinion.
That is incorrect. I'm saying in a capacity of a private attorney, that may come up. I'm not a private attorney. I have one client, which is the county. I won't be debating Walhalla about their ordinance. I see some frailties in their ordinance, and because of those, I advise the representative of my client being the county council, on the best way to go about this to make it enforceable, so it is not a waste of time. It doesn't cause law enforcement any problems, and it is something that can be enforced and tackled. I think the notion was, and it's been brought about, depending on the numerosity, the number of historical monuments that came into place, that they would not only be protected by the ordinance for enforcement purposes, but there also may be placarding, noting of some sort to elevate the status of these things. So I think with that in mind as a future goal, that adds to one of the reasons that they wanted that specificity on what's going to be covered. Now,
I just have a question.
yes, ma'am, absolutely.
What is vague about taking this out again?
What I was
what
talking about
makes
with
it vague?
the, yeah, with the
Because I'm not
Walhalla
following.
ordinance, the copy that I have, it simply says any monument, historical marker, monument, tombstone, plaque located within Oconee County is off limits. So, what you don't have, anyone can say, well, that's a monument, that's historical to me. Defining what is historical, what amounts to a monument can be a slippery task, especially when a law enforcement person is saying, you're climbing on that monument, or you're defacing, or you've done something to that monument or historical marker. And the opposing party says, well, I don't know that it's historical or that it's a monument. My argument is that it's not. And then the judge has nothing to fall back on and say, well, it definitely is. 'Cause he
Here's
has
a
to roll-
copy of the Walhalla ordinance, if you would like to read, that I have. It sounds a little bit different, sir, than from what you said, not exactly as stated.
Madam Chairman, if we could, we should just have one person speak at a time would help. Thank you. So this allows, I don't know what the consternation is about developing the list, but having a list allows for clear law enforcement. If y'all as a group say, hey, we don't want to do the list, county council, we didn't want this put on us, please redraft this in a way that you feel is still constitutionally sound, enforceable without us having to do the list. I will take it back and we'll make that measure. I'm relaying why it was initially put in there.
I understand that. Yeah, I understand why he's saying it now. I just
No.
didn't understand.
Okay. Mr. Jones, do you have questions or want,
Well,
our open discussion when we made the motion, was very similar, a different perspective, but similar to what you're saying, Mr. Root, was, anyone could come up and say, this is a historical marker, and we were looking at it as if we are the ones in charge of creating this list, how would we be held liable if we did not acknowledge something, or if our criteria left something vague and was out and found, and those that were here speak up, because this was back in October, that to be more open, similar and simplistic like the Walhalla, then when we left this open to the public for their input and they wanted to say, I think mine is, then we could judge and look at it on a case by case versus creating a criteria that might neglect something.
And also, I mean, there's nothing in here in my opinion, history is somewhat of a moving target. There is nothing that addresses how often this would be reevaluated, okay? Is the list that supposedly is created, is that forever in perpetuity? I mean, there are lots of holes in the cheese, if you will, in my opinion.
Madam Chairman, if I may, the list can be updated. We can incorporate it within, my notion is by ordinance. The initial list, it can be updated by resolution, which would be a single action of council. So if you get new properties that come to you based on the criteria that I understand that y'all perhaps have not adopted, but you're at least familiar with. So you have criteria that, from an equal protection standpoint, give everybody the same shot to have these divided. So you're not saying we're just going to do Confederate monuments, or we're going to do every monument but a Confederate monument. We're not excluding groups based on the criteria, but that list can be updated as, additional properties come into place. The notion was going to be that most of these are set, and if you are engaged with the community, and obviously Mr. Shirley and his team already are, you'll have a good feel for what these properties are. So if there's one new one or one that was missed, that can be added by amendment down the road. Is that responsive, Mr. Lombard?
It is, and the key word to me is amendment. And once again, we have voted unanimously to ask council to amend the ordinance.
if I may.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a lot of emotion in this one, which did not exist in September when we were talking about this, because in September, we did talk about how people could appeal and request for items to be added and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sorry I wasn't here in October. It's not like I stayed home and took a nap. I was on business in Mobile, Alabama, and could not be here. But I would state, I would like somehow in the records, and I don't even know how the proper procedure of this, you keep emphasizing unanimous. Well, unanimous of those who were here. Because I was not here, and I would not have voted in support of this. So I realize that because I was not here, I cannot vote. I also recognize that this is going to be my last time on this commission, so it really doesn't matter what I think. But there's obviously some emotion in here. And I think I'd advise this group to be more thoughtful about that. So I'd just like that in the notes somewhere, but it's irrelevant since I'm leaving.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I understand staff's recommendation, this would be Mr. Shirley and his department, was to let them bring back a list in your January meeting that meets the criteria that the commission already approved for confirmation, and then that list would be sent to council in the form of an ordinance for consideration. It would be adopted onto the ordinance, amended as an addendum to the ordinance that already exists, but it would be done by the ordinance process. So the ordinance process carries with it 3 readings, so 3 separate meetings, and then a public hearing. So I think that's key in this case because you would have public input on what's on the list, what could be added to the list or removed from the list. Obviously, you all cannot make anything that has the effect of law. You're an advisory body, so you send it to the council, and they can do with it what they want, adopt it as is, change it, or what have you.
I don't think it is a motion. I think that people were just, we're not lawyers, and we don't know.
I'm seeing a lot of emotion right now.
Well, I mean, as far as,
Okay. Okay.
from the way I perceived it when we were here, it didn't seem like it. I just think we just don't know, and he knows we're not gonna be arguing any of this in front of a judge somewhere sometime. And so, I think that's more it, you know. And I don't think, he wants to be responsible for something that we're not aware of or whatever, but I think that's basically it. I know that's how I feel. You know, I don't know anything about what you do, so, you know.
That's one of the things that I think is ironic, because as an advisory commission, we wouldn't be liable anyway.
And if I could, and I meant to speak to that. 2 things. Even if you were more than an advisory commission, as long as you didn't act outside the scope of your responsibilities, which are broad, you have immunity and you're covered by both the counties from an indemnity and defense standpoint, as well as from the Insurance Reserve Fund. So it's not an issue of personal liability or even group liability. Any of us can get named in a suit, and you can be sued for good, bad, or no reasons. You know that. But as far as liability, it wouldn't impute to you based on your recommendation to council. That's a non-issue. I've never seen a commission an advisory commission have a suit against it for some action that it advised another body to take, and it just wouldn't stand. So if you're concerned about the liability aspect, that's it. But if you're concerned about this may be too restrictive, it's something we don't think council can implement it as it's drawn, we can't come up with a list, any of these things, send it to council with that, and I'm glad to take it to them, and we can work on tweaking it. Certainly the council needs a body as it's structured now to work on that list. It felt this body is probably the best positioned to do that.
So for us, after this discussion, it sounds like we need to decide if we want to take no action or if we want to reconsider and make a motion to change or reconsider our prior action.
Well, if I were continuing with the commission, I would definitely make a motion to reconsider. But I'm not, so you guys are gonna have to deal with it, and therefore it would be inappropriate for me to make that motion. But I would advise you to reconsider, because there's not a liability. My biggest fear would have been, we'd leave something off that should have been covered. Well, we were already discussing about how people could apply for being added to the list. We were talking about that back at the beginning of this thing. So I don't think that would be a big risk, other than just making sure we had a process that people could apply to have their marker or their site or whatever process. But if your fear is the liability, I would strongly encourage you to reconsider, but I will not make that motion since I'm stepping down.
And to dovetail that, the primary concern during the discussion was not liability. There were different aspects that were mentioned. So that was not the primary concern.
So what was the primary concern?
It was a variety of things.
Madam Chair?
It just seems to me that if we are the Arts and Historical Commission,
Because
the
I
commission ought to be at least involved in this in some way. Just my opinion.
Maybe we should wait till the other members are here and we can put it on the back burner for now. Wait till Suzette comes back.
Do you want to make a motion to,
Just wait till the next meeting.
so we would need to make a motion to repeal
You could just make a motion to postpone the discussion until the next meeting. That would be a time certain, so it'd fail if it didn't happen. But you could just make a motion to postpone, and then when you put the agenda together, you could put it on there or not, based on what else is on the agenda, who you think is going to come. It sounds like you want to make sure you have everybody there that's going to be there, so you could just make a motion to postpone.
Okay, so there is a motion to postpone discussion until our next January meeting.
I would be willing to second that.
So there is a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, I think maybe we need to talk about some more.
I would encourage then all of us to go back and, since our minutes were not detailed with our discussion, to go back to our prior meetings and review those discussions and be prepared in January to fully discuss this.
And are you gonna ask the attorney to be here for that meeting and?
I'll be glad to come, Madam Chair. And if I could, it would help out. I don't have a dog in this fight. It doesn't matter if this ordinance stays the way it is, gets moved, changed, whatever. I serve counsel, I'm not a policy person. So, but I would, in order to address any problems, infirmities, concerns that you all have, as much detail as you can have about those concerns, about doing this list, that would help me better to address it in preparation, and we can get those, to Mr. Shirley. However, that would help in preparation for the meeting. That's just a request.
To all of you, I appreciate you considering that. So I know I'm leaving, but I appreciate you doing that. I think that's in your best interest. Thank you.
Okay, next item for discussion is actually, do we want to do the calendar, or do we want to do the?
I don't have a slide for this.
You don't have the slide for the form? Okay, so the next item is the Oconee County Mural Trail application form. And I don't know, does everyone have a full packet? Okay. So in our last meeting, we discussed that we needed directed staff to come up with a simplistic form that could be used since our murals, we have the first batch, and they're on the website, and the QR codes are up and running and working well. But we wanted to have a more organized method of adding new murals as they, made. And so that what you'll see is the form that staff has come up with. And I want to open it up for discussion if anybody has any questions or concerns or changes that we can direct staff. I will just say I had helped with the initial project of the website, and some of nearly all the information that is on this form, we needed to collect to be able to put the mural information on the website to get that QR code. At the bottom, the mural description part is something I worked on, and it was, it would be very helpful to have the artist's descriptions and what they felt was very important to highlight about the mural, rather than just someone else looking at it and making that description for them. I think our process was going to be that as new murals came about, they could fill out this form, and then if Phil would gather those for each meeting, and we could review them just to make sure that we all are in agreement that a mural should go on the mural trail. So with that, I'll open it up for any discussion.
I just have one question. Is there going to be like a limit? Is there a limit on the website about how many characters you can use for a description? Should we leave that on the website?
There is a limit. I want to say that it's 500 characters. we can ask that question to be sure. But it's 500 characters, so you have to consider spaces, quotation marks, periods, all of that took it into consideration when I was developing those.
I think it looks great. Is it downloadable? Is it on the county website? So you can download copies of it, or do we have to make copies on our own?
I am not sure, so we need to ask the number of characters in the description and if it's available online.
I think that once you approve it, then it would be.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's-
I would like to express support for the process of this, of them submitting it, putting it in their own words. I think that's very wise. I think coming here for input before it's just approved is wise. And I love the philosophy, start with something, and if you gotta tweak the form down the road, tweak it. So I would make a motion to approve this form and authorize staff to begin the process.
A motion
I second.
and a second. All in favor? Aye? Okay. That's good. Our next item is the FY '22 planning. I personally would like to push this to January. I would like to have as many members of here as we've discussed, since we will be working with a short timeline to get any funding projects completed by the end of the fiscal year. So, again, I encourage everyone to, if you have ideas or a focus, I mean, we have discussed what our goal and our mission and what we want to do, but if we have an actual tangible idea, that definitely will help us in January. Okay. Next item is the 2022 meeting dates. You'll see those listed in the agenda. They are the second Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. here, except July, we are scheduled to have no meeting. If everyone is agreement, we do need to vote to approve these, so I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the meeting dates as listed. Would someone, either suggestions, changes?
I'm lucky I know what day it is today, so it looks good to me. I don't know. I'll second it.
Second,
Yeah.
okay. All in favor of the meeting calendar? Aye. Okay. If there are any, would you like to make something?
I want to say that, I don't remember how many years I've been on this now, but it has been a joy to be part of this group. And I want to say that this group is doing a good job and going in the right direction. Aubrey, I have appreciated you as the chair. It's been a pleasure to support you. Unfortunately, I have been on 7 boards and commissions, and I've been asked to become the chair of 2 more of those, and just too much on the plate. So I looked at the commissions that I was working with and felt like that this one was in good hands and was very easy to say, I'm not worrying about it, I can step away, you guys are doing a good job, you're on task, on purpose, and you have my blessings, and I'm going to miss you. So thank you for allowing me to serve with you over the time that I have. I just got too much on the plate.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your service. With no other items on the agenda, I will go ahead and call to vote to
I make a
adjourn.
motion we adjourn?
There we go. There we go. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you.